So, hello and welcome to Education on Tour. This is Caitlin Walker, and I'm speaking to you from the northwest of England in Liverpool. I'm going to introduce to you a technique called clean language. It's an interviewing technique, and it's for paying really high quality attention to yourselves and to one another and to the hosts when you're trying to find out about how they see education and what their plans are for revolutionising education around the world. So first of all, what is clean language? They're a very simple set of questions. I've put them up on this board here, and essentially what they say is pay attention to what somebody's saying, and then once you've listened to it, rather than come in with your own ideas, take what they've said and ask them one or two questions around what they've said to start to build up a clear model of what it is they're expressing to you. You could ask, what kind of? Or is there anything else? So take a word or the whole phrase of what they said and say, what kind of a thing is that thing that you've just spoken about? Or is there anything else about that thing? And that just gives the listener a bit of space to explore their own thinking and to share a bit more information for you. If you're interested in the location, so for example, if somebody says to you, well, when I'm teaching really well, it's like there's a really strong connection between me and my subject, my pupils, and across the world. So a really strong connection between me, my pupils, my subjects, and across the world. So when there's a really strong connection, is there anything else about that really strong? When there's a really strong connection, what kind of really strong? Or if you were interested in the location, where is that really strong connection? Whereabouts is it? Or when there's a connection between myself, my subjects, my pupils, and across the world, does that connection have a size or a shape? So these are very simple developing questions, so that when somebody's trying to express themselves to you, you show them high quality attention, build up your ideas, and then when you express your own, you're expressing into an intelligent model that you've already developed from what they've said. So you can all think about this for a moment. It's probably the easiest way to learn it. When you're teaching really well, you're like what? What are you like? And then whatever you say, just write it down. And then ask yourselves, what kind of a is one of those words? Is there anything else about it? Where is it? Whereabouts is it? Does it have a size or a shape? Once you've got some basics about how that person teaches at their best, you could also say, and when you're learning really well, you're like what? Some educators that we worked with recently, one of them said, when I'm learning at my best, it's like everything just makes sense. I take lots of pieces from around me and then it just makes sense. So what's presented, what you start with is lots of pieces around me, makes sense. And you can ask, so when it makes sense, what kind of sense? Oh, it just sort of fits together. Oh, it just sort of fits together, it makes sense. And you take lots of pieces from around you. And I don't know if you're already noticing, but another key of clean language is not just the questions that you ask, but also repeating back, listening carefully for the words, looking at their gestures, and repeating back the gestures and the words accurately. So you take lots of pieces around you. When you take lots of pieces around you, what kind of a take is that take? Oh, well, it's like I sort of choose them. They're all, as I'm learning, they're all out there, as I'm sort of getting introduced to a subject. And then I just take the ones that I really want and I bring them into myself, and then they make sense inside me. So these are your basic developing questions. But of course you also want to know about the sequence and the process. So you might say, when you take pieces around you, what happens just before take? Well, I sort of look at them and I notice all the different bits of information, and then I just get a feeling. Oh, okay. So where could that feeling come from? Do you know what? It doesn't come from here. This is where it makes sense, but it comes from my gut. Okay. Now, again, you've got a new piece of information, you've got a gut. You can go back to these questions again. So what kind of gut is that? Oh, I've got a very clever gut. Is there anything else about the very clever of that gut? Yeah, that's where all my wisdom, you can't see it, that's where all my wisdom lies. So what you're doing is you're starting to use the questions you can pull back like this to just gently build up a model. So you could then say, oh, and you take those questions and they make sense, but you've got a really intelligent gut. And when your gut is really intelligent, what happens next? You can move the sequence forward. So these questions are to pull the sequence back, and these are to move it forward. So what happens next? Well, it all just sort of sits in my gut, and it's like you can fit anything in there. Loads of things fit in there. Okay. So these questions, they do a number of things. You use their words, plus either what kind of, or is there anything else if you want to find more about the characteristics. Where, whereabouts, or size and shape if you want to find out about location. What happens before? Where does something come from if you want to find out about sequence back? And what happens next? Then what happens if you want to find out about sequence forward? And if you want a metaphor, so for example, if they've said, oh, when I'm learning at my best, it's like everything just comes in. So you might say, everything just comes in. What kind of just comes in? Oh, well, it comes in from everywhere. You might say, okay, so it comes in from everywhere and it just comes in. And as it just comes in, it comes in like what? Like I'm a really dry sponge and all of the stuff is just flowing in the universe. So, okay, so you've got a sponge now and now you can develop it. So clean questions often elicit metaphors, and metaphors are wonderful because they're lovely tools to sit between you to help you understand another person, to help you understand yourself, and to, especially when there's language barriers, the metaphors can often help to make something more easily understood when you're speaking in one language and their mother tongue is another, and you're trying to make a really deep human connection between yourselves. The clean questions were developed by a man called David Grove, and then they were helped to be put into a model by Penny Tompkins and James Lawley. And my specialty, I'm Caitlin Walker, was to take them out of the field of therapy and coaching and into the fields of education, community development, and into organisations. If you'd like to find out more about clean language, you can visit www.cleanlearning.co.uk. And you can also go to www.cleanlanguage.co.uk, and there are so many resources and papers and DVDs, videos that you can watch that to help you develop your understanding of the process. I hope you enjoy adding this tool to your toolkit for Education on Tour.